We're very excited for you guys. And we also have Miss Elizabeth Cappelletti. Cappelletti, sorry. Miss Elizabeth Cappelletti, who is a marriage and family therapist, and she has a certificate in art and creativity for healing from Chapman University and has helped many individuals express their feelings of anger and sadness through art. She has a master's degree in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University and has been affiliated with Long Beach Veterans Hospital, Orange County Child Abuse Prevention Center, A Light of the Window, Starview Community Services, Providence Community Services, Pepperdine Community Counseling Center, and Family Rules. And they all, thank you. And they also have a holistic success show that just started airing on December 2nd, and you can view it on Cox, 7 p.m. on Thursdays. So it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Robert Puff and Miss Elizabeth Cappelletti.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being here. So we're going to be talking about raising healthy children and teenagers. So is everybody in the right room? Yeah? Okay. So there's three main topics that we want to cover here. One is how you treat your children, what you expose them to, and what you model for your children. And by modeling, it's kind of what you do because you are a model for them. So the first thing that we're going to start with is how you treat your children. And starting with this, oh, it's kind of loud. Do you mind if we shut that door? Is that possible? Thank you. Your presence with them is very, very important. And I know that sounds kind of like a blanket statement, but it really is. Nowadays, we have the computer, and we have our phones, and we always have work. But it's so important to spend time with your kids, no matter how old they are, whether they're 2 or whether they're 14, 15, 16, and up. It's so important because the presence, the time that you spend with them tells them that they're important, that they matter, and you care about them. And you know, also, if you don't talk to them, who will they have to talk to? Their friends? Their other teenage friends? You want them getting advice from them? I know that's probably not the best place to get advice. And the thing is if you really develop a good communication with your kids and your teenagers, you develop kind of a level of respect so that they will come to you when they have problems or they have concerns about things. And I think a really important thing is to try to come from a non-judgmental place, which I know is so hard because as parents you want to protect your children from everything. But you have all grown up to be adults, and it's really interesting because the struggles that we face in life, the things that are hard, those are the things that make us who we are. That's how we grow. There's a really beautiful story I want to share with you about a monk who gave a little boy a cocoon. It was a butterfly in a cocoon. And he said to him, okay, I'm going to give you this cocoon, and a butterfly is going to come out of it. But when it does, you're going to see that it's going to struggle. It's going to have a really hard time getting out, and you're going to want to help him. But you need to let him do it on his own. And so the little boy said, okay. And so he goes home, and he sees a couple days go by, and the butterfly starts to come out, and it's struggling to get out of this cocoon. So he says, oh, I'll just help him just a little bit. I'll help him just a little bit. So he helps the butterfly get out of the cocoon, and the butterfly kind of gets out, it flaps its wings, and then falls to the floor and dies. And so now the little boy is just so sad, and he goes to the monk, and he's crying, and he said, I don't know what happened. I just tried to help him a little bit, and he died. And the monk says this is a very important lesson because what the butterfly needed, that struggling that he had, helped to build his muscles, helped to build those things that would help him to fly. And I think in life that is so true even with our children because we do need to struggle. That's what gives us wisdom. That's what gives us courage. That's what gives us strength. So yes, granted, some things we need to block and prevent. We provide the guardrails for our children, but sometimes we need to let them get hurt. And I know that's a hard one, but we kind of give them what we can and the tools and hope that they can use that. But when I talk about presence, your presence with them will help to give them those kind of guardrails and kind of boundaries, and they'll listen to you if you're there. But if you're too busy with work and you're on your phone and you're saying, don't do this, don't do that, they're not going to feel respected by you. So we're here to talk about that. So spending time with your kids, what does that mean? I know in our fast-paced life, we're driving our kids here and there to practice, to school, to all these different functions. Is that spending time with your kids? No, it's not. But a lot of people think that it is. A lot of people think, oh, I'm with my child all the time. but the kid's in the back seat texting or watching the movie or whatever, and that's not time. The time that I'm encouraging all of us to spend with our children is the time playing with them, the time. I know it's hard, and especially, I know there's some teenagers in here, but when you get older sometimes, some of the stuff that goes on with teenagers, it seems like, oh, geez, the drama. But if you sit and listen to your kids talk about their drama, it's amazing how much they can feel like they can open up to you, because for them, it's their whole world. And I encourage you to look back to when you were a child or you were a teenager, and maybe for each of you it's different, but I can remember myself, and the drama seemed so important. And if somebody were just to have listened, it would have helped. And you feel respected when somebody listens to you. So spending time means listening. It means if you have a small child, playing with them. Even if you have a teenager, going out and throwing the ball with them. I see you guys have this volleyball court out here, and that's great. It's a great way for people to connect with each other. And do things that your teenagers and your kids like. Sometimes, you may not like the things that they like, but make sure you try those things. It doesn't have to always be on your terms, because that's not going to go so well. In therapy that we do with children, the reason why it works so well is because we sit and we listen unobjectively. We sit, so we sit and we listen to them, and we don't judge them for the things that they're telling us. And we say, oh, that's interesting, and we play with them, and we do these things. And it's surprising, I guess it's not surprising, but it's amazing, I guess, how much of an effect that has on these kids, whether they're really little or whether they're really big. And even a 2-year-old, if they're really angry about something, we sit with them and we allow them to be angry in a healthy way. We direct their anger in a healthy way. But we sit with them and we're present with them. We play with them. We do those things. And you know what? It's fun to play. We're adults and we grow up and we think we can't play anymore. But when was the last time any of you got down with a child or grandchild or niece or nephew and played a game with them? It's fun, right? It's great. You get to be a kid again. And we all have that child in us. And I think it's important not to ever let that go. It's great. You can see me sometimes running through the aisleway on the end of the basket of the shopping cart. So be present as much as you can. And, Dr. Puff and I always talk about, if you can make a little bit of a change in your life, even if it's 5% today, that makes a difference. So if you're always on the phone and you've got a lot of business, because I understand, times are tough and you have a family to raise, you've got business to conduct, but your time with your kids is really important, and that's what you're doing it for anyway, right? So even if, let's say, you spend a whole lot of time texting or on the computer, maybe if today you can take 10 minutes, and then, next week you can take another maybe 20 minutes, and you can slowly start to increase the time. That matters. Now, I encourage much more time than that, but if we have to start somewhere. So turn off the phone, spend time with your kids. If you're at dinner, turn off those things, no cell phones. And I would recommend, too, for the teenagers, no cell phones at dinner. That's, it's family time, spending time as a family to eat together. That's a sacred time for you guys all to connect with each other, and don't downplay that. Sometimes in our American culture, it's fast-paced and people are watching TV and doing all this stuff, but I think getting back to just being a family is so, so important. And on that note, both parents matter. I know in a lot of homes, one parent may be out working, and now, maybe both parents are out working, but it's not just the job of one parent to be the caretaker and the other person out working. Both parents matter tremendously in children's lives. And when we see issues going on with, teenage girls and teenage boys, if there's issues, like you can see a lot sometimes come up for maybe girls that are dating the wrong type of guys. A lot of times it has to do with maybe not a strong father figure there, or maybe the father isn't there a lot for them. And we can kind of go on and on about that, but it's just really important for both parents to spend as much time as you can. So if you work during the week, make sure you spend some time on the weekends. And I know kids might say, well, that's my time. Make some family time. Make it a rule that it's family time, because it's important. It's very important. Another thing that I want to mention here is not to lie to your kids. And I know there's a lot of things that, okay, I don't really want to talk about this with them. This is inappropriate. You can say that. This really isn't an appropriate conversation for us to have right now. Maybe we can talk about it at another time. But as far as lying, because what kids see as lying is if you make a promise to your child and you break that promise. And I realize that sometimes that can happen, but there are many times where work or whatever other things take over and it becomes a habitual pattern. We'll do this tomorrow. Tomorrow we can do this. Tomorrow we can do this. And then you can just see the child just feeling so bad, because the message that child gets is, I'm not important. Whatever mom or dad is doing is more important than me. And that affects their self-esteem and their sense of self-worth. Imagine if somebody important to you always said that, tomorrow, tomorrow. There's actually a really great song. It's called, is it Cats in the Cradle? And it's the song about a little boy who he always wanted to spend time with his dad. He always wanted to play games with him and do stuff, but his dad was too busy working. And he said, tomorrow we can do it, tomorrow we can do it. So the little boy grows up, and now he's a teenager, and the dad now wants to spend time with him. And he said, no, Dad, how about I borrow the car? Just give me the keys to borrow the car, and we can hang out tomorrow. And then he grows up, and he's working, and he's too busy. And then he has kids, and he's too busy. And it comes to a point now where the young man doesn't have any time for his father. And that's kind of what happens sometimes, because it's, you didn't make time for me, and you were too busy. You modeled this for me, and now I am doing this. And you know we don't want that. As we grow older and when we have kids, we do want our children to be in our lives. It's important. It's kind of a turn of events of how things happen, and it's really important to have them in your life. So make sure that you're not making broken-ended promises. And if you are doing that now, be aware of that and trying to create a change and say, you know, maybe you have to put it in your date book and say, okay, this time I'm blocking this out to spend time with my child because they matter and we matter. And leading into their self-esteem, as I was talking about, those things affect their self-esteem, and you affect their self-esteem. The time that you spend with them, the attention that you give them, whether you're listening to them, really listening to them. And that's something I really encourage, because what Dr. Puff and I talk a lot about is quieting our mind, because our minds are going a million miles a minute. Just even as you've been sitting here, you may be listening to me, but maybe you thought about what you have to do later on today, something about yesterday, something about right? I mean, you're a million miles away. And when you're with your kids, really be there with them. I know sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, really? But meaning some of the drama and the stuff like that, or they're talking about the latest, I don't know, TV show or something, not really what you want to talk about, or Transformers for an hour, but if that's really what's important to them, be there and listen to them. And people can tell. Have you ever been having a conversation with somebody and they're shaking their head, oh yeah, uh-huh, and you know they're just not there, they're somewhere else? Your kids can tell that too, and they can feel that. They're very sensitive. Kids are very sensitive. And pay attention to that. Be present. We actually have several books here, which, by the way, half of the proceeds for the books are going to go to the church. But we have a couple. One is Meditation for Health and Happiness, and the other is Living a Peaceful Life. And those two really talk about being present. And I really encourage you, if you have a difficulty with that, which I don't know what human being on this planet doesn't have difficulty with that, I encourage you to kind of check that out as well. So now I'm going to let Dr.